Hello and welcome to another episode of Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two best friends spin a wheel every day leading up to Halloween. It chooses the horror film and they discuss it. Today we're talking about 2014's As Above, So Below, which was directed by John Eric Dowdle. I'm your co-host Alec, and joining me today, returning guest Bonnie Marie Williams. Welcome back to the show, Bonnie.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm very excited to be back.
Yeah, and thank you. You jumped on last minute and actually presented this movie too today, which kind of blows me away because I had never even heard of this movie. Like, not like, oh, it's something I knew about, but no, literally never heard of it. You introduced it to me today. So thank you. I really enjoyed it. But I want to know, how did you hear about this? Did you see it when it came out? What's your history with this guy?
Yeah, so I did not see it when it came out. I actually saw it, I believe, during lockdown. So I went to Paris in 2019, that Christmas time into New Year's, going into 2020, and then heard that there was a horror movie. I think I was scrolling and I saw that it had the Eiffel Tower on it upside down. And I said, well, that looks like a horror movie. And I looked it up and said, oh, it didn't come out that long ago. Let me watch this. And I thought it was really good. And it stuck with me. I obviously for years after I've seen it. So I've only seen it twice now, but I think it's one of those, it didn't get good ratings. I don't care about that, but I think it was a bit underrated and it kind of flew under the radar with a lot of people. And I think it's a pretty smart horror movie. And that's not to say that they're dumb or anything, but there's a storyline and it's not just found footage. And, I like a good turn off your brain and be scared. There's so many different facets of horror that I love. But I really liked the story with this, and I liked that it made you think. And it was just very different than a lot of other movies I had seen.
Yeah, it's tough to compare this really to anything. I did think of one thing that's like sort of like it, but not even at all. Have you ever seen Cube from like 2001 or 2?
No, ooh, but I'll add it to my list. You introduced me to one.
No. That's not the one I want to introduce because it's okay. Like it's an all right movie, but it reminded me. This is better. This is way better. But it reminded me of Cube because it's people that are like trapped in a place and have to go room to room and they have to like solve puzzles basically as the room's about to kill them or whatever. That's really the only similarity. Otherwise, this is much more of an interesting plot. But yeah, I am a sucker for found footage movies. How do you feel about those?
I actually really like them, and I think that started with going to see the Blair Witch Project when it came out, and
Oh yeah.
I'm going to date myself here, but I was 11, and my mom took me to see that, and she did not have a good time.
Ooh.
But I did, and
Yeah.
I certainly did, and I think that's where that started for me because it was so different, and that I think put that type of film really on the map. And I think that's why I like those. Like I really liked the first Paranormal Activity. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Mm.
And this type of movie, I really like the found footage because it does make it feel more real.
Oh yeah. Wait, so you saw Blair Witch in theaters and it didn't freak you out at 11?
No, not real. Like maybe,
Oh my
okay,
God.
maybe a little bit, but, and this is something I'm going to share that I don't think I've really told that many people, at least not publicly. I
Yeah.
think I was trying to write my first horror movie after seeing that. And I was like,
Wow.
how would that work? And how would like, that inspired me to start trying to write a film. I didn't know what I was doing, but,
Yeah. No, but that's awesome that inspired you though.
yeah, I just thought it was really good and it was scary and I thought it was a fun type of scary, but there were scary moments in it to to an 11-year-old. I think it's the fact that we really never see the Blair Witch in it
Mm.
is the scariest part of it. The screaming in the woods, but I think the part where they're in the corners and they're standing there and their backs are
Yeah.
turned, like that's like, ooh, I'm getting freaked out thinking about it.
Yeah.
That to me, I think was probably the scariest part of it. So many aspects of that were scary, but no, it didn't freak me out. I don't think I slept with the lights on after that. I think I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
I was a really weird kid.
No, I mean, the thing about with me in horror when I was a kid, like I loved it, but it would ruin me. Like I had to see it, but once I saw it, I'm like, okay, like lights are on. I'm likely in my brother's bed. Like, I'm at night. Like I'm so afraid after I see it, but I build myself up too. Like, going to Blockbuster, I would see like the Hellraiser box, and I made
hmm
that movie so scary in my mind. And then I saw it and I was like, this is not scary at all. Like, so your
Hmm.
imagination will make it much more scary than it is. Just like in the Blair Witch, it fills in the blanks of what does a Blair Witch really look like? In your mind, you make it scarier.
Exactly. And the marketing on that was brilliant too, because they really
Mm,
made it seem like it was real.
yeah.
And this was early, early internet. So what did we know? It was that was brilliantly done by the marketing team. And I think the actors, on a side note, I think the actors should have been paid way more than they were.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's what they're talking about now. And I find that very interesting, especially, in our industry. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been freaked out more by one-off things than I think that movie. Like there was an episode of The X-Files that genuinely freaked me out more than almost anything I had ever seen. And at first I was like, was that a fever dream? Because I was really little when that came out. And then I was talking to this one guy that I'd been seeing at the time, and I said, because that was his favorite show, and I said, there was an episode that had this thing, or that's how I remember it. Is that a thing? And he knew exactly what it was. And I went back to watch it, and it scared me as like a 26-year-old or something. It was
Uh,
wild, but like that spooked me more than the Blair Witch Project did when I was, 11.
yeah, some young, like, primal fear that just, like, impacted you, like, scarred you. Yeah, no.
Hmm.
I get it. Yeah. But yeah, no, Blair Witch for me too. That was my introduction to found footage. And then seeing the paranormal activity, like, really it got me invested. I think Cloverfield, I was like, this is pretty cool.
Hmm.
But it's funny, I looked up this director because I thought I'd never heard his name before. I think I've seen every single one of his movies, actually. Have you ever seen like Quarantine? Do you remember that one?
I do remember that one. I did not watch it when we were in lockdown, but I do remember that one.
Yeah, so he directed the remake of that, which is a found footage. And then I just watched the Poughkeepsie tapes like fairly recently, and that movie is fucked up. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I haven't, but I'm looking at his stuff right now. Yeah, I've seen a few of those, but not that one. Okay.
That one, yeah, that one's just like mean. It's not, it's like, I don't know. But and then Devil, I did see that was M. Night Shyamalan. I think he wrote that, I think. And I think I liked that. So this guy does like decent stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this one I enjoyed some of the dialogue I thought was a little cheesy, but the overall idea of it, like it's really cool. I mean, it's like this overeducated archaeologist basically. She's almost like Lara Croft, basically.
Yeah.
And she's looking for the Philosopher's Stone, if I'm right, which
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. What does the Philosopher's Stone do? Does it get like eternal life?
Eternal life, healing, basically just kind of makes you, if I remember correctly, it gives you sort of superpowers without getting bitten by a radioactive spider.
Yeah. Yeah, no, basically it seems like you're invincible and just live forever. And this one woman thinks she's found it. So she's making it seems like she's just making not a documentary, but like she just hired a guy to like film her because who is Benji to her? Did they ever answer that? Or is she just like a friend?
She hired him, yeah.
Okay. Because yeah, he seems like throughout the whole movie he like does not want to be there. And I felt terrible for him like the entire time. I'm like, I feel like this guy like doesn't he's not like dating her and I'm like, why is he here? And this seems like I hope he got paid a lot for what he's going through, but
Hmm. Yeah, he kept getting the short end of the stick for sure.
oh my God, yeah.
Poor guy. He just thought he was, gonna go film something like a weekend trip. Yeah, I'll film this. It'll pay my rent. That'll be fine. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, get to go to Paris.
And it was not fine.
Yeah, so we'll get to. I mean, his death I feel like is the worst, but we'll get to it. But yeah, so they're making this video about this woman trying to find the Philosopher's Stone in Paris, and she thinks she's found it. It's been her father's life's work, very like Indiana Jones 3, looking for the Holy Grail kind of vibes. And she has to go get her friend, who I guess is like her ex-boyfriend or whatever, who's also in Paris, like fixing a bell tower. And I recognize that guy from Friday the 13th, the remake from the
Hmm.
2009. Remember him?
Oh yeah, and he was on Mad Men too.
Oh my God. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. I do remember this guy now.
He's
Yeah,
in that meme with Don Draper in the elevator that I don't think about you at all.
that's right. That is
Uh-huh.
right. Okay. Yeah, so like I guess kind of I don't know. I think that he's the only guy I recognize, I think.
Same.
Yeah, but that's good. I kind of like it when I don't know anybody. And I thought the acting was like pretty decent, for found footage. Like the dialogue was a little clunky at times, but I thought the acting was pretty good.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. There were a couple things where I'm like, okay, this part might be a little silly or I could have done without this, but overall I really enjoyed it and I thought the acting was good.
Yeah, and they set up like the stage that it's in Paris, and you were saying you had gone in 2019?
I did, yeah. I went my first time there in 2019. I didn't get to go to the catacombs because I think
Mm,
I was the only one on that group trip that would have wanted to go, and I didn't feel like venturing off by myself in a place where I had never been before. So
yeah.
I unfortunately did not get to do that, but it is absolutely on my list for next time I go because that seems really fun and I still want to go.
I actually went.
Oh,
Yeah, so I didn't know
shut
what this movie
up.
was about. Obviously, you just texted me and I was like, sure, that sounds great. So we just, and then I'm like, oh, they're in Paris in these catacombs. And I was like, I went there in 2006, I think, or 2007. And I was with my grandparents and my little brother. And yeah, we went to Paris and we went to Normandy and Italy. But yeah, we went to Paris, these catacombs. It like doesn't feel real. I'd gone to, like Pirates of the Caribbean and stuff, and I was like, ooh, spooky. And then you come here and you're like, oh, this is real. Like these are real dead people who are just stacked on top of each other. So as a 16-year-old, it's not really registering, So I'm just kind of
hmm
like, okay, like, yeah, it's safe though. Like, so seeing it again in this movie, I was like, that, if I went as like my age now, like I'd be like, okay, this is pretty fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the largest graveyard in the world, I think somebody said.
Yeah. Which is
Yeah.
crazy because, like, people are like, oh, the Amityville Horror is the most haunted place in the world. And I was like, there was murders there, but, like, have you been to Paris? There's 6 million people all there. And it doesn't seem like, the Ghostbusters, not the Ghostbusters, the ghost, those ghost hunting shows, they're not going there. So,
Mm-hmm. I like the idea of the Ghostbusters going down into the catacombs, though.
I
That's a
mean,
movie I want to see.
that would have been a good spot for him to go. 6 million ghosts. Like, I don't know. I don't know if they're listening.
When's that movie coming out? That's the real question.
Right? Well, I'm glad that a movie utilized it though, and I had never, seen it in a film before. So it was really cool to see them do this. I don't know if they actually filmed it in the actual catacombs, but maybe, why not?
I think they did for part of it, and then part of it had to be sets, but I believe I read that they did film part of it down there,
Yeah.
which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's so much more authentic and yeah. So very, very cool that the movie's basically about that, but then it turns into something else. And I watched a YouTube video after it just to see if I was like crazy or not. But basically they're going through the 9 layers of hell, right? Is that kind
hmm
of
Yeah. Yeah.
now, I've never read Dante's Inferno, so I don't know what it entails. Have you ever read that?
I did my it was honors English in high school, so freshman year we read that and it's one that sticks with you for sure.
That sounds, I really wish my high school made me read that. Like that would have been good, like to be forced to have read it because I hear so much about it now and I'm like, shit, I should just sit down and read that. And I just never do.
Maybe you will after this.
I really think I will, or at least watch a lot of YouTube videos on it, which is the equivalent in my mind. So, we'll see.
I would have done that if we had YouTube back in ninth grade. So,
Right, right. No, yeah, me too. Okay, so seeing this film, like, did it kind of match anything when you were watching it? Because this YouTube video explained a little bit, but what did you think when you were watching it?
I think so. It kind of made me go back in the recesses of my mind, 20 something years and go, okay, okay. Yeah, I remember that part. Oh, I remember that part. So it's kind of like a refresher, but I think, if you have never read it, it still does a pretty good job of explaining what it's about. And I think that was really smart. Instead of assuming that everybody's read it because not everybody has read it, they do a really good job of tying that into the story and talking about it. And I think that was really smart and it was a cool plot point and it helps if you're familiar with it, but I think at this point most people are familiar with it even if they haven't read it, they understand because it is so famous.
Yeah, no, that was exactly my experience. Like, I hadn't read it, but I got a grasp on it. And
Mhm.
yeah, and then it made me look up the different layers of hell, what they are. And then in the film, you do kind of see like the greed one or whatever, like where they go for the fake treasure and then they're punished by the trap going off and having to go through down to get out, basically. So you have to go through all the 9 layers to get out. So I was like, okay, this is cool. There's this movement on a bunch of different layers. And I'm
Yeah.
sure upon a second viewing, you would know this so that they each of these characters have to face whatever their past mistakes are. You would probably pick up on a lot of the different things earlier on in the film than I definitely didn't.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it holds up after a few rewatches too, because you can look back and notice things you didn't notice before. And then I watched another YouTube video before we did this that actually explained some things to me that I didn't necessarily notice. And I went, oh, that's who these people are. And it made a little bit more sense. And then it made me appreciate the movie even more. I said, oh, there's still more to learn when you go back and you look at it again and you watch it again.
Yeah, it definitely has rewatch value. Like, and that was the thing. I mean, that Benji character, like, I didn't know because that when they go to the club or whatever to get the tour guide guy, that girl that walks out, she's like all
Mm-hmm.
creepy, and then she is staring at him later as she's walking, and then she's down in the catacombs, and then she's the one that kills him. So it's like, oh shit,
Mm-hmm.
maybe she's somebody from his past. That's what I was saying in the YouTube video at least, and I was like, okay, I could see that.
Yeah, that she could very well be because they didn't dive into everybody's sins that they had to atone for, and that idea that if you're going through hell, you have to keep going. They take it literally in this. I read something else that she was somebody who shows that they had been being watched more than maybe we thought they were, and that
Mm,
she's one of the characters that's stuck in purgatory and limbo. There's a few different ideas behind it, and that's what's fascinating is people have different ideas and philosophies on who some of these characters are and these ideas that weren't necessarily solved and as concrete. And I think it's cool. I kind of like that people can still talk about it. Like I looked on Reddit and people are still talking about this movie and introducing it to other people and they're posing questions about this movie. And I think that's really cool that it's still being talked about 10 years later.
yeah, no, I'm super happy you told me about it, and I'm a sucker for anything found footage, like honestly, and this matching with my interests, especially. I'm not a religious person, but I am interested in religion. I find it like
Yes.
as a historical aspect, I find it really interesting, and this was like a little national treasury kind of like a little scarier of that. They're looking at different things, reading like Aramaic, and then twisting scarabs out. It was kind of like the Mummy a little bit too,
Mm-hmm.
but. I was thinking about it. Like, yes, obviously they think they found this stone. Her father invested his whole life into figuring this out. She's very invested into figuring this out. Once they get to like the first layer and they realize like how deep they have to go, how dangerous this is, all that stuff, like, is it worth it to like not get like a crew, like a real crew, so like they know what's going on? Like, this is just me. Obviously, I'm not into horror film, but I'm just like, the Benji guy would be like, hey, listen, I'm not doing this anymore. And then, the other guy from Friday the 13th, he's also like, I also don't want to do this. So you're forcing us to do something we really don't want to do. Let's go get an actual crew to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But, they don't do that because obviously there wouldn't be a movie if they did that.
Yeah, and she was very good, I think, at being perhaps a bit manipulative. And I'm trying to be nice about it, but definitely doing the like, it'll only do this. I just need this. And not necessarily thinking about other people and not
Yeah.
maybe who you would want leading your group. But I do think she's pretty unlikable in the beginning, and that's her character arc is Scarlet. By the end we grow to like her a bit more because she does atone for those sins, and I think that's a fascinating concept that everybody either does or they don't do in the movie, and if they don't do it they're killed.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that the other woman who's with them, she's like, they're like, we need to go down another floor. Like, that's where the Philosopher's Stone is. And the woman's like, are you sure? And she's just like, yeah. And she just says it like with such certainty. And it's like, you don't actually know. And if one person twists their ankle or anything like that, like, you guys are fucked. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, I would have been like, hey, listen, good luck. You know where you're going. I'm out of here. And, sorry.
This is why you would survive the horror movie.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I love to like right as they're going in, they get like attacked by the police, but somehow they all get away. Like the cops don't get one of them. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, good, good to
Well,
know,
that
I guess.
smoke bomb that
Yeah,
that Papillon put out, that like Batman just
I know. I was like, okay, so you all got away, but I was like, good, good, good. Oh yeah, so okay, so I don't really think that Scarlett's I don't know the details of her and her father's relationship, obviously, but it's not her fault that she didn't answer the phone and then her father committed suicide. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of make it seem like that was her fault. And
Yeah.
I wasn't crazy about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if we wanted to look at it this way, that she thinks it's her fault for not being there. And that's perhaps the best representation of it is maybe he was reaching out multiple times and she never answered. And it was that last one. And that's the guilt that she's replaying. I think that could be another way of looking at it too.
Yeah, I guess she just wasn't there for him. Yeah. I mean, when she hugs him at
Hmm.
the end.
But they boiled it down to that. Yeah.
Yeah, because she was like, I didn't know you were hurting so much. And it's like, okay, like, how many calls did you miss? Was it like 5 years? Like, my God. Like, but yeah, so that was like, okay. There was another one that I was kind of like, did that guy really deserve it? I guess we didn't know about Papillon or whatever, like what he actually did. But that car's on fire and you see a guy reaching for him or whatever. And I think that's the guy from the beginning, right? Who
It
tells him,
is. It's the guy who tells them to
yeah.
look for Pap. Yeah, it's him.
And that's the thing. I wish right there they'd said like, "Where the fuck did that guy go?" Like, just be
Hmm.
normal, like, because that's what the audience is thinking. And I'm like, well, why don't they say that? Because that's what anybody in that situation would be like. Where the fuck did that guy just go? You know,
Hmm.
like. But yeah, it is. They kind of gloss over it a little bit, you know, and that's I think a little bit of the criticism is the dialogue just feels like a movie sometimes, but still the actors do pull off a little bit of natural, I guess, speech.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the movie basically is them just kind of going room to room, and then there's a little bit of a puzzle they have to solve in the room, and they ultimately just keep going down. And I'm trying to think who dies first.
I believe it wasn't it Susie? Like when they're in the room and their mole friend like bop like gets her. I think
Oh,
she was the first to die, and it was a ways in too. Like it was a ways into the movie.
yeah. Okay.
The
Yes.
mole, their mole friend, yeah.
Right. Yeah, we haven't even talked about the mole.
We haven't even talked about that creepy guy.
Yeah, so like apparently these like whatever, like 20 somethings that hang out in like Paris nightclubs, they have a friend that I don't know, lived in the Paris catacombs for some reason and he knew all of the paths, but there's one path he would never go down, which is where the gateway to hell is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they find this guy the mole and he's weird and they're like he's not like he normally is, but like whatever, what are we gonna do? So they follow him and oh yeah, because they have to follow him now because the cave collapses, so they're trapped.
Yep. And they
Right.
try to go around and it leads them back to that second entrance that they said they didn't want to go into. So they had to go and they followed him. And it was weird that his eyes were weird. And they're like, well, maybe they thought it was drugs. I don't know. Don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then yeah, he sees a flashlight. I mean, seeing that flashlight must be crazy for him because like if he lives down there, it's dark all the time. But
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of made me think about like Indiana Jones a little bit, where I'm like, wow, everything's really well lit in Indiana Jones's cave diving experiences or anywhere he goes.
They've got a really good lighting designer down there.
Yeah, like everything's always looking, and they don't have any flashlights or anything, and I'm like, wow. Oh yeah, and the other thing is right when they get into the cave after it's collapsed, I think or no, before it's collapsed, they see that woman and a bunch of other people doing like Gregorian chants or something in the catacombs, and they kind of brush over that a little bit too. They're like, oh yeah, there's weird people down here. It's like this is like a cult, guys. Like
Yep. 100%. Yeah.
they're all wearing the same thing. Like, should we like be concerned? He's like, no, no, he's fine. Like, come on, this Betty, whatever. It's like, okay. Like, if I saw that anywhere in America, I'd be like, someone's gonna die.
Someone's gonna die. I'm leaving. Goodbye. Yeah. 100%.
They're like, fuck it, this is Paris, I guess. So, yeah, so they keep going, and yeah, I think that's basically it until kind of all hell breaks loose, and they start dying. I mean, did I miss anything? I mean, they don't find the Philosopher's Stone until after people start dying, I think.
Yeah, till people start dying and then they find that it's the stolen one, so it's not the real one because she's trying to bring George back and has to go back all the way through by herself, which is
Yeah.
I watched that for the first time. I said nope. Like sorry George, I'm getting out. Sorry.
Right. So George gets attacked by one of the creatures in his neck. Yeah, gets like
Mhm.
gut sharpened or whatever. Yeah, that was kind of crazy. It was like so she's running all the way back and climbing up the thing and putting it in, and then we find out that yeah, by doing that, the stone actually goes into you, and you just have the power once you put the stone back or whatever.
Yeah, that it was the character building aspect. It's like, no, you have the power, but it's you have to have faith and do the right thing and atone for those sins, and that's where you can get out.
Right. Yeah, and that's like that's pretty cool. But so I guess the idea is like so somebody went to hell and figured this all out and then escaped hell and then wrote a book about it. Is that what we're supposed to believe?
I guess so. They were like, this was pretty whack. Let me write about it so everybody else can learn about it.
Right. Or like was, did God tell somebody like, hey, if anybody goes to hell, this is how you get out. It's really hard, but this is how you do it. And like I'm just trying to think like how did anybody figure this out? I would assume almost everybody would die trying to do this. Like
Yeah, and I think that's the idea. Maybe that's why they're like, yeah, people are used to being down here, and this is just what it is, and that other people have tried and they've failed, and it's so interesting that they were able to weave this idea of the Philosopher's Stone and the Inferno and put them together into a storyline, and it's just very, very interesting and something you don't necessarily think about for a horror movie, and I think it works.
no, very much so. Yeah, because it keeps you engaged, even if you're not like scared the whole time. You're still like, well, what's going to be down in the next level, or like where's it going to go? Like, it's not like a regular horror movie where it can bounce around and go to a bunch of different places. We are super hyper focused on these people and the mystery and the adventure, really. So yeah, it's
Hmm.
very engaging.
And the ideas of, if you have to, when you're in the middle of it and the thick of it, you have to keep going if you want to get out on the other side. And maybe you need to face parts of yourself that you need to do good for and you need to atone for, whether it's, people you've hurt or maybe parts of yourself, I think are very interesting. And that, the idea of sin and the different concept of it, and different religions have different concepts of that. But a lot of them do have that idea of forgiveness and atonement, and whether it's through God or through other people that you've hurt. And I think this was very interesting that they had it in the movie without necessarily being religious.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I think it was kind of what we were talking about. Like, it's more of the or the historical aspect of the religion of
Yeah.
being able to study these different cultures that know about this. And it's written in so many, I mean, throughout the film, there's like Egyptian and Aramaic and all these old languages that they need to decipher to, get the codes or whatever. So yeah, it has religious, like adjacent feelings, but then it ultimately is real because like this is hell. Like it really
Hmm.
is. So they can do all of the research, they can study as much as they want, but then in the practice of of hell, they have to use the actual knowledge that they've gained before going there. Oh, and there was one other thing we didn't mention the older knight guy. Remember him like that? He's like he's been here for 600 years or whatever. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
yeah, who the hell was that guy?
I'm trying to remember who they said he was. Because, like, you expect him to move.
I know, yeah, because they come back up. I think he's like rotted or whatever. But yeah, I thought he was definitely gonna be like, move around or something. But yeah, no, I think because they said like someone's tomb, like it's under someone's tomb or something like that. And I think it was that guy, but I don't know who
Yeah.
it was. But he looked
Uh,
like British medieval soldier almost. Like that's kind of the uniform it looked like.
yeah, he's a dead Templar knight. I just looked it
Right.
up because I'm like, who is that? I'm trying to think, why was he? It's just kind of spooky that he's down there.
Yeah. And so we do get to see a couple like demon things in I guess the ninth layer of hell, and didn't love like the punching them. It kind of felt like an old video game, just like like just like hitting the guys and they'd fall on the ground or whatever.
Yeah.
But like they use the can like a GoPro to just like hit a demon from the ninth layer of hell. I'm like, I'm assuming the worst here.
That
And
was funny.
yeah. But there was one right in the beginning that kind of like crept up and looked at them, and I was like, that is scary. That one. It was like
Hmm.
in a dark little room, and yeah.
Yeah.
There were a lot of little moments like that were really good. And the blood, like the hands coming out of the blood and the teeth on the ground. Like there were moments that I was like, ooh, this is scary. It's got some good stuff.
Yeah, the hands in the blood in the pool pulling her down. And it's that idea of like they're gonna pull you down, but you have to keep going because it's not gonna be easy to go back. And I thought that was interesting. And I think I made a joke the second time I saw it when the teeth were on the ground. I was like, little ankle biters.
Yeah. Imagine you say that to him and it's like, really? It's like my job is to scare you. It's just like, well, I'm having fun.
I'm having fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So dumb.
I love that like the Papillon guy, like you think he's one of the leads or whatever, and then they just kill him and they're like, "Oh wait, actually his friend is gonna be like the guy that survives." Like I was okay with that guy surviving, but I kind of wish it was just Benji and Scarlet because I'm like, this guy's kind of been like a third person in the party. Like I don't know too much about him and he survives and then just runs away at the end.
He did what they should have done in the beginning.
Yeah, just run away.
Yeah.
After that, he's like, I'm done with you guys. Like, fuck this.
Exactly. And I kind of like that it was a random guy that we didn't necessarily have a lot of emotional attachment to because he was there. It makes sense that to me, it makes sense that they killed Papillon because we saw his friend burning and, whatever that meant. I don't know. Maybe he left him in there and I don't know. We don't know what happened with that, but I kind
Mm.
of like that it was a rando from the group and then he runs away because that is what any other normal sane person would do,
Yeah,
but not Scarlett or George. They're like, "Oh, let's, resume this thing that we were doing before when you left me in prison." When we
I
got on
know.
our last adventure together, like, okay, like
Yeah.
George, maybe do other things if this is the most exciting thing you have to do.
I would love it if like the next scene is them in a coffee shop and it's like that was crazy. It's like, yeah, listen, so I'm still not over the Turkish thing. It's like that's really what you want to talk about right now? It's like we need to figure this out. And it just
Oh my
goes off
God,
on that. It's like we just
that would have been
survived hell.
amazing.
It's like, yeah, I was in hell in that Turkish prison. It's just like, okay.
You had me in emotional hell.
It's like, do you know what that Turkish have you seen Midnight Express? It was horrible. But the I loved though them escaping hell. I thought that was so cool. Them jumping the leap of faith. They have to like express their biggest regret or their biggest, I guess, yeah, sin or regret or whatever. Which again, the guy from Friday the 13th and Mad Men, that's also not really his fault. Like I understand you feel really bad about that. Like of course, and who wouldn't? But unless you literally were like, my brother's dying, help. It's like, do you want to go to Chuck E. Cheese instead? It's like, yeah, let's do that. Like, okay, then sure. But I'm assuming you were looking for help and your brother died while you were looking for help. And he's acting like I actively let my brother die. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Am I crazy there?
No, not crazy at all. And maybe that's what they feel like their biggest sin is and their biggest mistake that they feel like they had a choice in that. Maybe if they went to therapy, they would realize that it wasn't their fault. But since they're not going to therapy, they've intellectualized it as it is their fault. So
Right. This episode is also sponsored by BetterHelp. You can use checkout code horror. So thank you, Bonnie, actually, for that subtle intro
absolutely,
into the
you're
ad
welcome.
read. No, you're totally right, though.
But no, I would agree. You have the right perspective on that. If only you were there to tell them, that wasn't your fault. You
Yeah,
were
yeah,
8, you were 10. You can't stop somebody from doing X, Y, or Z. But until they go to betterhelp.com and use
right.
code horror to save 10% off their next therapy session,
Yeah.
they'll just have to figure that out on their own.
I know, exactly. That is the thing. I wish that they had all done something bad. Like they actively did something bad. Like the other guy who gets away at the end, he's like, "Yeah, I know I have a kid. I've actively turned my back on it." Like, "Okay, yeah, you should feel bad. You should atone for that." But the other two people are like, "Yeah, like yeah, that really sucks, you know?" But yeah. So it's more about the thing you feel the worst about and getting atonement, I guess, for that maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
guess, I guess so.
But the ending, I love. They say their atonements. They jump down this leap of faith, and then they like push a sewer grate from the inside, but it looks like it's like going down, but it's actually going up. I thought that was awesome the way they come
Yeah.
out of that. That was so cool.
Yeah, really, really smart, really cool because they're trying to figure it out. It's like, no, we have to go down to go up. We have to go up to go down. We have to go this way. It was so, so well done.
Yeah, I know, and it made me think. I was like, are they in hell? Are they in an alternate reality now? Like, is this the same world they left? Like, it made me question things. I don't know.
Hmm. As it should. It makes you leave watching it because they leave the theater. It makes you leave your living room watching it and going, huh, like I have questions. I kind of want to mull this over and think about the possibilities and what about this? And I thought it was really, really well done. And you do have to wonder, are they out or do they have to go all the way back to how do you do that? So it's really cool. It sticks with you.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I definitely really appreciate you showing me this movie. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I'm glad that you liked it, and thanks for letting me talk about it. I think it's a really good one that not enough people have seen, and it's far from perfect, but I think it's enjoyable and it makes you think, and maybe it'll make people want to try therapy. I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if you have unresolved issues, talk about it. You don't have to go to hell and fight through things and do puzzles, you can talk to somebody.
You can talk to somebody. Take yourself out of the emotional hell that you've been in instead of going there literally.
Yeah, exactly. I think they did a good job with Hell though, because it doesn't, everybody's like, oh, it's fire and, stuff like that. And this was more just like a creepy cave and very dark and scary noises. And I mean, who knows if hell's real, but maybe it's like that. I don't know. I don't know. But
Mm-hmm. And it's that idea that it's cold and it's not comfortable and your worst fears are down there, whatever that means for you. It's very interesting.
yeah. Well, yeah, definitely check it out, especially if you like found footage movies. Like this is, I think, higher up on the list, especially in the past like 10 years. There's been some interesting ones. So this one's a better one. I really appreciate it again, Bonnie, and thanks for coming on the podcast again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I would love to come back anytime.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for listening in, and we will see you tomorrow with something.
Woo!